Welcome to Battlefield 6 Season 1, and I gotta tell you, what you're seeing right now on screen is early access to the upcoming release of Season 1 in Battlefield 6. And Season 1 has been a bit of a concern for me going into this capture event, because it's that first season before Christmas where things are generally quite busy and the devs have to work super hard to get this stuff out before that winter break tends to kick in. And Season 1, I actually think, contains probably one of my favorite Battlefield maps of all time, and possibly one of the best Battlefield experiences across any Battlefield title that we have seen so far. There are also some slightly more head-scratchy elements of this update and a few things that were a little bit confusing and things that I didn't quite understand, but we'll touch on that a little bit later in this video as we dive through the content. We're going to be covering absolutely everything: the brand new maps, the new weapons, the new modes, the limited time modes, and also the new battle pass, and how all of this all works, and whether or not any of it's any good. But if you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like, make sure you subscribe as well. We're super close to 200k, which would mean a lot to me, and let's dive on in to Battlefield 6 Season 1. So everything you're seeing in the background is brand new footage from the new maps with some of the new weapons. But Season 1 is essentially happening over 3 separate dates. The first date is the 28th, called Rogue Ops, which is giving us Blackwell Fields, a new limited time mode, new weapons, new vehicles, and new attachments. Then on November 18th, we get the second part of the update, which gives us Eastwood, another new mode, as well as new battle pickups, and new weapons and new attachments. And then finally, the final beat is on December 9th with Winter Offensive, which gives us a limited time mode winter version of Empire State, and basically a full Empire State Winter LTM, as well as an ice climbing axe melee weapon to boot, just before Christmas and before things start to settle down. This new Season 1 also comes with a battle pass, and the battle pass system is quite interesting. Essentially, everything that matters to the game's weapons, things like attachments and critical components of the game, are of course completely free, and you can unlock them completely free irrespective of what you do. But if you do decide to purchase the premium level of the battle pass, there are specific cosmetics that you can unlock and certain limited items that you can unlock within this battle pass. Now, it's really interesting because there are 4 separate tiers to the battle pass that you can basically choose which one you want to level up first, giving you 4 separate pathways to individually progress through and prioritize the things that you actually want to unlock first. And if you complete all 4, you get access to a 5th tier, and the premium version of this is being referred to as Battlefield Pro. But without further ado, let's start with the brand new maps coming to Battlefield 6 Season 1, the largest component of this content update that I think most people care about the most. Now, weirdly, I'm going to start this a little bit flipped. Now, Blackwell Fields is releasing first on October 28th, but I'm going to start with Eastwood, which is releasing on November 18th. Because if I'm being perfectly honest, I actually think this is one of the best Battlefield maps I've ever played. I think it 100% is going to be the best Battlefield map when it releases in Battlefield 6. It will definitely be Battlefield 6's #1 go-to map in my personal opinion. And I think it's just a perfect template and a shining example of everything that future seasonal content for Battlefield 6 should look like. Eastwood has a bunch of identity, it's lots of fun, has incredible amounts of destruction, and is just a phenomenally good map. It's a straight 10 out of 10 for me. It needs a few minor tweaks in a few small places, which we'll talk about, but this map, it's generational. Eastwood is set in a suburban Californian environment with a bunch of big suburban houses, these sort of slightly war-torn streets, but lots of really interesting points of interest. You know, you've got these clubhouse buildings, a golf course element that allows you to ride golf buggies across the entire map, and it's just absolutely oozing with identity. This map takes all of the best elements of games like Bad Company in terms of destruction, and then combines it with all of the fun sandboxy elements we've expected from modern Battlefield titles. And in a way, it kind of reminds me of Battlefield Hardline in all of the right and good ways. This is a map that's just fun infused from the get-go, and I think has been incredibly well thought out and incredibly well put together. Battlefield 6 certainly has its slate of unique maps that offer unique experiences, like Manhattan Bridge and Siege of Cairo, but Eastwood to me is the first real sandboxy map. It's the first map that's sort of gone, here is a fun playground that we have created, and we're not afraid to be a little bit silly. We've included some stupid stuff like sprinklers and golf carts and dips and dives and droves and valleys that make it a lot more fun, and silly little swimming pools that you could potentially get a stealthy kill from. But what will really strike you about this map when you first play it is just the really intelligent way that the objectives are separated. Eastwood feels like a really large map, even though it isn't necessarily the largest in the world, because there's really nice elevation changes and distinct visual separation between the objectives. Some objectives will have you fighting in more residential suburban areas, some objectives will have you out on a golf course, other objectives are going to have you fighting over a clubhouse in the center of the map. But all of them, and what makes all of them fantastic to me, is that all of them are very destructible. There are entire ceilings that can cave in on some of the larger structures, and the smaller structures like the residential houses that are spread around the area can be completely catastrophically taken down. There are also some really cool winding alleyways and dips and droves that are spread in between these residential buildings to kind of give you a bit of a respite from the overarching conflict around you. One of the things that I think Battlefield does incredibly well is finding controlled chaos and finding a moment to sort of take a second, then dive into the next objective, because that next objective is going to be chaos, and then find another place to sort of dip out, take a second again, and then dive into the chaos again. And Eastwood completely understands this and does it absolutely perfectly. The only thing I think the map needs is maybe a 30% increase on the height ceiling so that helicopters can get a little bit more separation from the ground than they currently can. But everything about this map is just incredible fun. There will be nothing else like riding a golf cart into battle against a main battle tank. And I think this map also caters really well towards one of the brand new vehicles, which we'll talk about, the Traverser Mark II, which is essentially a very armored ATV that lets people move around the map a little bit quicker and bust through buildings. Now, the reason I mention Eastwood first is because, like I said before, I genuinely believe that this is what the staple of what future Battlefield content should look like for Battlefield 6 is. A larger sandbox environment that isn't chasing a certain time to engagement. It's an environment that is distinctly fun and has been thought about to create something incredibly unique. This map isn't like any of the other maps, it's its own flavor of experience, and I really feel like Battlefield thrives best in terms of providing content when the seasonal content that they continue to add are unique experiences, not the same meat grindy maps, not the same time to engagement, just crafting something uniquely fun. And that's what Eastwood is, and I think it's going to be an absolute fan favorite, not only just for Battlefield 6, but I also just think generally if you're a Battlefield fan, this map is 100% up there. Now on the flip side of this, we have Blackwell Fields, and Blackwell Fields, unfortunately for me, is a map that, after playing it for a while, I can't say it's a map for me. Blackwell Fields, I think, falls into the trap of what a lot of Battlefield 6 maps have done so far, which is chasing a very specific time to engagement, forcing a smaller player space that isn't that fun, and then predominantly using vehicles as what I would consider to be set dressing to try and make it feel more sandboxy than it actually is. Blackwell Fields is incredibly linear and for some reason does feature airstrips, which you take off as a pilot as a jet, turn left and you're immediately over the other airstrip, which didn't really make a lot of sense to me. And it just feels like this map isn't really a map for me. This is another map that, again, is chasing a very specific, you must fire your gun within 30 seconds so you don't get bored, and loses that sandbox element. I also think that this map feels a little bit more like 2042 in terms of design philosophy, where rather than having bespoke structures and compounds that have their own sort of uniquely different assets that make them unique points of interest, predominantly the map relies on different types of terrain variations to give you hard cover. So you're losing the building element of the game and the destruction element of the game, and in return, you're receiving lots of dips, dives, and hills, which yes, do operate as hard cover, but ultimately just create various different types of height imbalances that end up being predominantly used by vehicle camping and sniping. I feel as though for me personally, this is not a map I'll enjoy. Some people might enjoy it, but generally speaking, I think Blackwell Fields is a map that kind of just blends into the background of Battlefield 6, whereas Eastwood to me I think is such a generationally good map that I feel like people are going to go crazy when they finally get hands-on with it. I don't think it's all doom and gloom though for Blackwell Fields. I do genuinely believe that if they decided to slightly adapt this map and primarily make it more of a Bad Company 2 style linear map that predominantly used just transport vehicles, that would make a lot more sense for what this map looks like. And I also feel as though, on the flip side of that, they probably want to take jets completely off of this map and actually add them to Eastwood. I think Eastwood, with a larger player space for jets specifically, so that they can go out of bounds a bit more and dip behind some of the hills, would actually be a better jet map than Blackwell Fields, which honestly feels like jets have kind of just been shoved onto it last minute. I think there will be some people who do appreciate the linear chaos of what Blackwell Fields offers, but for me personally, if I'm looking at Battlefield 6 as a product going forward, and I'm looking to Season 2, Season 3, Season 4, Season 5, what my advice would be is take whatever Eastwood does in terms of just being a fun sandbox experience, and specifically being an experience itself. Trying to be different, trying to be larger, trying to offer stupid stuff like a golf course and golf carts, and make that kind of the poster of what seasonal content should look like. Whereas Blackwell Fields, I think, is what I would ultimately describe very harshly, I think, as a filler map. Next, let's move on to the weapons, which I think are the second largest proponent and things that I think people are looking forward to the most. And this, I think, is a universal positive across the board. And the reason I say that is that I think all of the weapons just feel fun to use. Now, Battlefield 6 certainly isn't perfect in terms of balancing, but one thing I think nobody can deny is that a lot of the weapons across the entire space feel fun, feel playable, and don't necessarily feel as though you're at a disadvantage. I personally really like it when a game prioritizes weapon diversity and weapons that just feel distinctly quite fun, as opposed to trying to ultra meticulously balance everything, make some guns super boring, and then everything just feels a bit meh. Now, granted, we don't want another situation like the beta where one specific shotgun ends up accounting for like a third of all kills, but when you're adding new content to the game, that content may as well be fun and usable. And all of the weapons, I think, fall into that category. Now, as somebody who is predominantly an engineer, the first thing I got hands-on with is the new carbine, which is the SOR 300. And although this is supposed to be a sort of SCAR-style variation of a carbine, to me, it actually felt like the AK-5C from Battlefield 4. Just that kind of universal, good across medium ranges, you know, very usable at close ranges as well, carbine experience. That was super, super fun to use. I spec'd this thing out as best as I could with all the attachments, and whilst you will struggle over extreme ranges, which is to be expected with a carbine, or carbine as some of us call it, it is just a fun gun. I felt like it was something I could take into any different kind of engagement, have a good time with, and I think it's definitely my standout weapon that I definitely will be unlocking first. Then you have the Mini Scout Sniper Rifle. The Mini Scout is great. I think this is like the super aggressive but quicker sniper rifle. I don't know the full ins and outs and details in terms of where it lands statistically on the scale of sniper rifles, but it's definitely the fastest and it definitely maintains that level of lethality. This will essentially be the ultra aggressive sniper loadout that people who use them on the front lines of Breakthrough as opposed to the people who sit further back on the map will use. And we've had variations of this in the past, where a really aggressive sniper rifle allows some players to play on the front line instead of sitting off in the distance, and that's exactly what this sniper achieves. We then have the two sidearms, which is a Glock and a new type of snub-nosed revolver, and both of these are pretty decent sidearms for you to pick up. I personally try to avoid my sidearms as much as humanly possible, but this definitely adds a bit more variety. And finally, a DG-12 shotgun, which is essentially the DG-12 from previous Battlefield titles that you'll know and love. Battle pickups are also in the game now, although I actually didn't find any whilst we were during the course of both of the capture events, so somebody definitely did have fun with the battle pickups, but as far as I'm aware, it's essentially a ultra-heavy machine gun, akin to kind of the battle pickups that you saw in Battlefield 1. There's also a new angled grip attachment and a railed cover attachment, which give you slightly more options in terms of speccing your weapon with, of course, that cost system in the game. And then finally, the ice climbing axe is added to the game, which will offer you a winter-themed melee weapon going into Christmas. Next, let's talk about the new modes, and there are two smaller scale modes coming to Battlefield 6 Season 1. One is called Sabotage, which effectively is kind of like a custom version of Demolition, where you're charged with destroying specific assets on specific sectors, and it is a round-based mode as well, but does allow respawning. The other one is Strike Point, which is essentially a search and destroy style mode, which I think will be quite popular, and both of these are coming in Season 1, both on the 28th and on the November 18th drop, respectively. We then have the new vehicles, or, well, vehicle, but also we technically have golf carts now. So there is the Traverser Mark II, which is essentially a heavily armored ATV that can take an absolute beating and features a Top Gun attachment. Now this thing is of course nowhere near as lethal as something like an IFV in terms of splash damage, but having that Top Gun does make it incredibly effective at clearing out infantry, and also very effective against other vehicles of light variations of armor. Now, this thing can see a good number of infantry on top of it and can take an absolute beating. I think it actually takes 3 rockets, if not possibly 4, in order to get this thing completely destroyed. It will, of course, detonate over mines and be damaged by slams and things like that, but this is very much a deliberate attempt to provide a more armored transport experience that is stopping you from being completely shot out of the vehicle instantly. And then, of course, there is the golf cart, which can fit up to 4 people in it and does feature on the Eastwood map. This is probably my favorite vehicle that they've added to the game, and it's just stupid and it's just fun, and that's what Battlefield should be, in my humble opinion. All in all, I think Season 1 is an okay and solid first outing. I think Eastwood is a very redeeming part of this update that is incredibly good, and I think it's just possibly one of the best Battlefield maps I think I've ever played, and I think it's going to be extremely popular. I also like the fact that they're adding lots of different variations of modes that are going to allow people to try and experience different pacings of things and different varieties of things. For me, I think the new weapons are also a real standout, and all of them were lots of good fun to use. The biggest disappointment factor, I think, of this new update is that Blackwell Fields just wasn't really a map for me. I think some people will enjoy it, but for the most part, I think Blackwell Fields kind of feels like another one of those grindy linear maps that has a very specific time to engagement. And I think all in all, like, if Eastwood wasn't as phenomenal as it is, I think this update could perhaps have fallen on a little bit more of the tamer side of things. Ultimately, I think there is a really good opportunity here for DICE and generally Battlefield Studios and all of the wider studios who are going to be making content seasonally for Battlefield 6 to learn from this, is that Eastwood is that fun, bigger sandbox environment that is uniquely creating a custom experience that I feel adding those unique flavors of experiences, whether it's Battlefield 3 Aftermath, Battlefield 3 Close Quarters, or Turning Tides from Battlefield 1, or, you know, Naval Strike from Battlefield 4. Those thematic experiences that provide a different flavor of things to an otherwise existing product, in my view, are better than providing something like Blackwell Fields, which, although geographically is in a very different place and is supposed to be a different map, the time to engagement's the same, the grind is the same, the vehicles feeling shoved onto a small environment feels the same, and this map kind of just falls into the backdrop and isn't, in my view, particularly very impressive. But on the flip side of that, it's also worth remembering that this is quite literally the first season of content for this game that is immediately coming out, like just a few weeks after the actual release of this game. So turning around this content that quickly has probably put some constraints on the teams working on it. It's probably been a very difficult task to get this level of content ready, willing, and shipped this quickly, immediately after the launch of the game. And I think that in itself is generally quite impressive. And I think the reason I'm being particularly quite harsh about Blackwell Fields in comparison to Eastwood is that I really want the future of this seasonal content to look more like Eastwood. That sort of thematic Californian resistance. We have a very clear experience and idea in mind that we want to provide our audience. And I think if they can continue to do that in Season 2, 3, 4, and beyond, Battlefield 6 is going to have a phenomenal post-launch, and if Eastwood is even a taste or a teaser of what could be coming for this game in the future, I think we have some very exciting things to look forward to. And of course, all of these assets are going to be available in Battlefield Portal, so if there's something you don't particularly like about Blackwell Fields or don't like about Eastwood, you can probably make your own variant of that pretty soon, which is pretty exciting to see. So folks, that's it for this video. A big shout out to EA and Battlefield Studios for letting me get early access and hands-on. Hope you enjoyed this content. If you do, please subscribe. We're on the road to 200k, and I'll see you again in the next one.
Charlie. We have neutralized objective Echo. Be advised, enemy attack is underway on Delta.
Attack support is needed on the marked objective.
Be advised, hostiles are engaging objective Delta.
I'm over here. Take what you can. Got like an extra ammo. Run, run!
Be advised, enemy attack is underway on Delta.
Medic!
We have initiated our attack on Charlie. This is it! Take the objective! Get down!
Hold the objective!
This is it! Order!
Our troops have secured more objectives.
Attention! Objective marked. For the attack. I spotted a hostile helicopter.
Good job.
We are engaging objective Charlie. Objective control in regained.
Charge set, stand by!
Our troops have neutralized objective Charlie. Be advised, Alpha is under attack.